told me and she said, "You're so pretty. I wish I could make up on more frequently."
You want to say that?
Okay. I'm just trying to have a straight shot out the door if I need to run. We've been crazy 5 years. I just did. I turned my phone off before they could beat me up. Trying to follow all the rules today.
I'm shocked.
I know.
See how it is?
Hi, how are you? Yeah, go where you talk. In school. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
Remember, you're supposed to be quiet. You need to come.
I started out with kids.
No.
That's it.
You can't sit on floor between girls.
That's the camera. That's where it needs to be too, because we can have it back there.
I know.
We can put it up here.
Okay.
And we all need to talk about it. Nobody
Yeah,
cares.
well, doesn't have to.
Yeah, I'm gonna address that.
No, this is just a minute.
We have to talk to the attorney to get out of control. I'm gonna control over it. But
Yeah.
if somebody really has to come to talk to you, I'll definitely.
Yeah, they shouldn't do that.
Good times.
Yeah, of course. We'll do it eventually, we'll do it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how long. Meeting was gonna last. She didn't think so.
There you go. That was very calculated. He's got a long point on the still working over. There it is. So there it is. They basically have an editor all the
Other than our state of confusion.
Did you notice that on the west side of it, it has an extension?
You sound like you've got problems.
But yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's nice.
That's why hers was.
But yeah, no,
They left out.
they're running around and then
They play all the
they're telling us
they're all over town.
There's just like things up demand for activity for the kids. And every single, we've been on, it has to be honored. One, weekend day, every single last 3 weeks. And it's just, hundreds of people there, parking's insane. I mean, really, it's just parking on that. Yeah, and, you know, everybody's gonna recognize this is temporary. Once the construction is done.
My kids like toilets, old toilets. Sometimes you have to walk. It
Call meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by prayer. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask you for your wisdom to have us give good advice and decisions for our community. Please remember former Mayor Carl Brewer's family that passed away this last week. That your thoughts and prayers are with his family. And we just ask you for your guidance again in our community. In your name we pray. Amen. Announcement I would like to say, I know last week we were, I would say we were quiet up here, so I want us to try and project our voices a little better. I've had some people saying they can't hear as well, especially online as well. So if you guys could please speak loudly so that everybody can hear. I think it's fine, but I think us up here. And then also, try not to interrupt each other. If they do, I will call order. So members of the audience, nobody's allowed to speak at any time. So if you guys can refrain from speaking, I would appreciate that. If called upon by a member of the governing body, then you're requested to speak, or we can get in trouble with some Open Meetings Act. Everybody's got their 3 minutes to speak, and we necessarily won't interject on you speaking, but we'll let everybody have time to speak. And after everybody speaks, then we can. At any time, council has the opportunity to speak if they would like. But if we can try and let everybody speak at the same time, or not at the same time, and just let everybody have their time, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Item C, approval of the agenda.
Everybody get a chance to look at all the agenda items? Have any questions? If not, look for an approval of the agenda as presented.
Do we not have to have an executive?
It's on there.
Oh, it is, okay, yeah. Motion is approved.
Motion by Hunter, second by Michael. All those in favor, aye? Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Item D, citizen comment.
At this time, we would like the members of the audience to come up, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to talk to us with whatever you'd like to about. Enjoy seeing everybody here tonight, too.
Yeah, good crowd. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, Jim Butler, 127 North Cedar. Lived at that residence 23 years. In that 23 years, I've received, unfortunately, notices for my grass in the alley being too tall. Left limbs in the alleyway as well. Shame on me. But, out of sight, out of mind. Members of the City Council, maybe you don't drive down Cedar Street, but me and my neighbors and my guests do. That street is atrocious. I just wanted to give you some notice. Maybe you haven't driven down that road lately, all the way from First, all the way to Santa Fe. It's like a minefield driving down that. New car, old car, doesn't matter. The potholes have gotten pretty bad. So, just wanted to give you guys some advice that as I prepare to maybe sell my property or build on my spare lot, it'd be nice if that road was maybe fixed up a little bit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. I know staff is working on that.
Okay, great.
I have talked to them, and I think maybe we should block off part of that road, that's something we need to consider, but they're gonna try and rebuild it, not just regrade it, so yes.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Cody Carlisle, one of the property owners at P17 Cedar. Similar to the plan that he had. Second Street is awful rough. Almost to the point that we park cars and potholes and top off a little dirt. Probably fine. Possibly grade the roads, please. Anyhow, I'll leave it at that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Cody.
Hi.
Hello.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, my name is Michelle Stewart. This is my granddaughter Copeland. I live at 626 North Goddard Road. I am here to talk, well, just kind of show my support for the library. The library is a very important part of this community. She's been going to the library since she was 4 days old. And there's a lot of things that the library is important for in the community. I know that we have grandchildren that come in to the library, not just mine. You know, I have a city councilman's grandchild that comes into the library. And I don't know how many of you have actually been in the library lately, but there have been some great changes that have been made in there, and we'd like to continue doing that. I also work at the library, but it would be great if, I'm really here as a citizen, not as an employee. It's hard to keep them separate. But it's really important to make sure that there are other programs that are there in order to help small things, tall things. I mean, everybody needs to have access to a free resource, especially during this time, when times are so tough. So that's basically what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
My name is Vicki Luthai, and my address is 718 Timmy Court. I am in Goddard. I am the president of the library board, and one item that has been mentioned is that the library and the city have always agreed upon the budget up to this point. If silence is an agreement, I guess that statement is true. However, the library board never realized they could ask for an increase. They were always told what the budget would be, and that was the end of the discussion. They did not realize it was their duty to have a voice or a choice in the matter. Because of the strategic plan and the board training that was included, they now understand it is their job to set the library budget, and that it had not been at an appropriate level in the past. A community that is growing needs to fund their library to keep pace with that growth. We have done some great things over the last year and want to continue to grow those programs that community members need and ask for. The library strives to be a source of great pride for the Goddard community. The library wants to be a place where people of all ages can come to for books, programs, information, services, and assistance. We want to continue to grow and serve our patrons, but we need the support of the city management to do this. Thank you.
Hi there.
Hello.
Lisa Fouts, 1961 North McRae Court is my address. I'm also here to talk a little bit about the library. I am a library board member, but more importantly, a Goddard community member. We have previously asked for a $2 million increase to our budget, and I just wanted to share a couple thoughts with you. First, I know that in talking about a $2 million increase, there is a legitimate concern for how that increase would affect members of our community, and I do get that. But I feel that what we're getting in return far outweighs the additional cost. Based on my home value, my family of 5 would pay an additional $3.83 a month for the 2 meal increase, which you all know is less than a cup of fancy coffee at Starbucks. It also equates to about a third the cost of the cheapest Netflix subscription. And between the magazines, books, movies, programming that our library has to offer, I'd much rather spend my money on our library than I will on Netflix. I personally do not view the $3.83 a month as something that's being taken from me. Instead, I choose to look at the value that I would receive because of that $3.83 a month. And seeing all that April and her staff have accomplished with their current budget in this past year, I know that the increase to staffing, programs, and services would more than make up for the additional costs to my family. I also don't see this as an all or nothing deal. The city's already given us almost a full mill from their budget, thank you, just to help cover our basic operating costs. You could continue with that, and then we only need to increase the property tax by 1 mill. If your concern is that the $3.83 a month would be a financial burden on members in the community, a 1 mill increase is now only $1.92 a month for a $200,000 home. I ask that if you will not consider the 2 mill increase, you do look at other options such as this. I also want to point out that we are not asking to be capped or forcing you to do so. We're simply asking for more funding to help us continue to meet the needs of our growing community. Finally, we have a librarian that is incredibly passionate about our library and community. April has proven in the past year that she is more than capable of making a significant impact in our library and beyond. Let us empower her to do just that, to expand upon what she started, taking this library to the next level, and making Goddard Public Library the best community library in the state and beyond. Personally, I'm very excited about the future of our library. Thank you for partnering with us, and again, we appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, my name is Carrie Wharton. I reside at 10805 Westlake Circle. I am the Program and Outreach Specialist for the Goddard Public Library. I say that with great pride. My family has been a part of the Goddard community for 8 years. My husband and I moved from Park City, Kansas to Goddard area because of the schools. My oldest was there in kindergarten and I was pregnant with our second child. When I took the job at the library in September, I was excited to work with the Goddard community. Early childhood education is my background, but with this job, I can work with people ages birth to 99 in a given week. It's very exciting. I've been a part of story times, book clubs, teen activities, family board game nights, and so much more. I had to completely step out of my comfort zone when COVID-19 hit, but I was still committed to reaching the Goddard community and letting them know that we cared. I set up shop in my living room. My husband helped me videotape story times weekly, and I did Lego and photo challenges to name a few things. I tell you these things because I want you to hear my heart and my passion. Another part of my job has been reaching out to the community for sponsorship or donations. I thought that was going to be very difficult because asking people for money and for things is not always easy to do. It was very surprising and very easy. I was amazed at the support the community is wanting to give us. In fact, I had several people when I called, they said, sure, whatever you want, come on over. I feel that they have seen or heard all the positive changes at the library. The library needs to be funded with a look toward the future. I do not have proper space or funding for our programs. Our story times are packed. We have to put up extra tables for our wine and color nights and board game nights. Before COVID-19 hit, we were going to need to make reservations for all our events for spring and summer. During the school year, we have around 15 to 20 students in the library from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to whenever their parents come and pick them up. We do not have proper space for them or enough staff to assist them. These are good problems to have. I'm asking for the budget increase because I'm excited about the things that are happening at the Goddard Public Library. I have a heart for programming and outreach. I'm passionate about this community and I believe together we can accomplish so much more. To continue to grow, however, the library needs to be funded appropriately. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time? All right, thank you.
Approval of the consent agenda, approval of the minutes, approval of accounts payable, and the T file board and commission meetings.
Give me a chance to look at the consent agenda with the accounts payable and receivable. If no questions, look for a motion to approve.
All motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Hunter, second by Larry. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Item G1, Rustic Creek Development Agreement and Conditions.
Mayor and City Council, this is an item that's a follow-up to last week where staff was directed to reach out to the developer and his team to present a modified development agreement that essentially removed the paving and roundabout cost participation. The item was voted to be tabled, which is why it's old business. I have this image in here twice, once at the beginning as we begin discussion of the development agreement content, and then at the conclusion to kind of give you a visual reference. But what you see is phase 1, phase 2 with phase 3 going in the middle and in between, and the roads being connected to the existing neighborhood to the west, to Main Street, and to 199. That would allow Autumn Blaze to have a secondary, as well as Hopper through Autumn Blaze, a secondary ingress-egress point to the neighborhood. 42 lots would be phase 1, with an additional 27 lots for phase 2, and 36 lots for phase 3. The development agreement was crafted by city legal staff, Robert Kirkendall, and it utilizes the same framework that we utilized for Elk Ridge, St. Andrews, and Arbor Creek Addition development agreements. Special assessment financing concurs with the metro area standard and our big brother to the east, the city of Wichita. The developer will dedicate a lot for future development as a public park. The city will provide funding assistance totaling $170,128.38, with stormwater comprising $38,000, detention improvements $92,000, and essentially a discretionary amount to be used by the developer at his will for $39,260.50. Sanitary sewers are 8 inches, but would allow 10 inches if needed. Anything larger than 10 inches would be the city's cost. Water mains are estimated to be at 8 inches in diameter. Stormwater would be designed according to the metro standards and approved by the city engineer. And as we discussed previously, both in March and was in your staff report at the last council meeting, due to the blanket drainage easement from the development to the west that flows along these contour lines here across the property. Before there was a universal standard for stormwater detention, that was kind of the norm. They just surface drained it off to the next property and went from there. The roads will receive that portion is what the city was supposed to pay, but will not be paying in the development agreement. They submitted petitions for 3 phases that are also included as your staff report, would need to be taken in 3 separate motions for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 after the development agreement is approved. If there are modifications or changes to the development agreement at that time, the petition should not be considered, as that would bind the city to the terms and conditions of the petition. And then we would expect to bring that back in July with any changes that you may request if the current proposal doesn't fit your needs. Are there any questions so far? Costs related to the city were presented above. We just estimated a 20-year debt service at 3%, and this is what's was generating an estimated $11,500 debt service, which is down from about 20 by removing the paving. The developer will market homes ranging from 200 to 250, with 30 lots being included in phase one, using $200,000 provided to Mr. Ralph. That's essentially minimum house value of $200,000. So you just simply divide that 11,500 into the 200, gets you 16 homes to cash flow. We anticipate the developer having 4 builders. Each builder will construct 1 spec home, so there's 4, and then each builder would construct, 1 model home, and then construct 3 spec homes. So you would have 16 homes from the start. So it would cash flow, in theory, on day one. If there are no questions regarding the comment, we do have the developer representative. Ken, do you want to say something, Ken?
Yeah, I will. I'm Ken Lee with Garber, 8535 East 21st Street. We're the developer's representative for the project, and I did want to point out that the $18,000 has been removed from our paving petition. The new petition does not include that at the request of the council last time, so that has been removed. So I wanted to just confirm that had been done. The only other thing is that $39,000 you mentioned, that's actually used to pay for the city. It's the city paying their share of the staking inspection administration of the project. That's what that amount is actually going to end up going for, is to pay for that. So the final thing, this is the side 2nd Street. He wasn't lying. I drove in on 2nd Street. It's pretty rough. So I just wanted to say that's kind of funny when you said that. But yeah, the other thing I'll just say is that Russ and the folks that he works with, we've done numerous projects with him over the years. I've worked with him and his partners for over 20 years, and I've never had a project fail with them. We are just getting ready to open a new phase in Bel Air of 16 lots. He's already sold 4 of the 16 and they haven't even taken down the barricade yet. So these guys, that I can assure you that they go to town when they get going. So I'll answer any questions if you have any.
I have one.
Larry, any questions?
We're on the bottom of the picture then?
Yes, sir. From at least the cost participation standpoint. Yeah.
No, I'm good. We've talked about it a couple times now, and I'm pretty comfortable.
Okay. All right, thank you. The recommended actions would be to, if it meets your approval, to authorize the mayor to execute the development agreement for Rustic Creek addition with Goddard Investments LLC, and that can be done by a voice vote.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Motion by Hunter.
Second.
Second by Michael. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? All right, we got 3 more motions here. 2 wants to read those.
I'll make a motion to accept the petitions for phase 1.
That'll work. Motion by Larry. Second. Second by Hunter. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Motion carries.
I'll accept the petition for phase 2 paving.
Second.
Motion by Hunter, second by Larry. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Thank you. Was there one more?
One motion to accept the petitions for phase 3 paving.
Sanitary sewer, water, Rustic Creek.
Everything included?
All that.
Motion by Michael.
Second.
Second by Sarah. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Item H1, consider special events permit and curfew waiver for new night park event.
Honorable Mayor and Council, so in the past, the city has, for certain private or publicly sponsored events at the city park facilities or park area, have been granted a temporary suspension on the restricted curfew that is in place. Previous councils have determined what events should be considered when temporarily waiving that ordinance. The council will also need to approve a special event permit related to that event. So Mark Collier at Collier Allstate here in Goddard approached me a couple weeks ago and requested to rent the linear park pavilion in the direct area kind of once the COVID thing was passed. the limitations. So he's wanting to sponsor a movie event for the public on June 26, 2020 from 7 to 11 o'clock p.m. Should be over before 11 o'clock, and that curfew, I think, is no later than 12, or extends it to 12. So Mr. Collier's already paid the rental fee to host the event in and around the pavilion area. It's a privately sponsored event for public attendees. Mr. Collier has also filled out a special event permit, acquired event insurance, and turned in all the necessary and relevant documents for renting the park pavilion. And City Planner Micah Scoggin has reviewed that special event permit. So staff would like to propose a temporary suspension of ordinances which restrict curfew and sound in order to allow an event to occur where a movie will be played until no later than midnight on June 26, 2020. If you look in your staff report, there's several documents related to the ordinances in there, along with that special event application that Mr. Collier turned in. There would be a small publication expense to go ahead and put that in a local newspaper, and it has been approved before by the city attorney. So at this point, I'll take any questions or comments about that.
I guess, are we that stringent on something to do all this work and not just tell the cops you can't give me a ticket for an hour? I mean, is that serious? Because it seems like we put a lot of work into something for an hour.
This came up a year ago and we rid of that, and we still have to do it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was about a 30-minute process for Mr. Collier to go and get everything
I
filled
know,
out.
I just see you guys' staff time being taken up for all this too. Is this something we'd want to consider changing the curfew to midnight so this wouldn't have to come up again? 'Cause it seems to me like a gross waste of time for an hour of curfew for minors.
This kind of just covers us, I think, if we do get that call and the police officers say, well, there's nothing really we can do. So if somebody comes and complains at the council meeting,
I guess if we just approve the event next time, you have to do the whole curfew then? Can it just be?
I'll let maybe Brian or somebody speak to
Like I
it.
said, just doing the publication
Well,
stuff, it just seems like a lot.
The curfew was defined in the ordinances, so it would require a change to the ordinances for the curfew.
We've done this in the past, I think, for events other than what the city's sponsoring,
Okay.
so.
And we can always come back with discussion to look at amending the ordinance for codes in July.
I'm just gonna say Montville, I didn't know there was a curfew my kid was supposed to have.
Okay, any other questions? For motion to approve the special event permit?
So motion.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Hunter. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right, then look for a motion to waive the reading of the ordinance.
So motion.
Motion by Sarah. Second by Mike. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
And then motion to adopt the ordinance.
So motion.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Michael. Roll call.
Councilmember Larkin,
Aye.
Councilmember Zimmerman, Councilmember Levi,
Aye.
Councilmember Proctor.
Aye.
Moving ordinance 852.
Thank you, Patrick.
Item H2, Linear Park Memorial bench request from Prairie Travelers.
Honorable Mayor and Council. Prairie Travelers have recently completed a brick memorial located near this statue on the east side of the pavilion in Linear Park. The Travelers have come forward and asked to include a memorial bench near the brick memorial. The proposed bench is constructed from stone and will be placed on a concrete slab. It will resemble the other bench that is west on the trail behind the bus barn. There's a picture of that's a representation of the bench that is west of Linear Park. The bench will be located on the south side of the trail directly adjacent to the existing brick memorial. Kind of a small picture that you'll see there is the statue of brick memorial with the trail running through, and they're proposing to place the bench just south of that trail across so that people can sit on that bench and enjoy the brick and memorial and the statue. They request permission, and now it says they request permission to place the bench in Linear Park, across the path from the existing memorial. They have indicated that this is the last portion of the memorial to complete. They will pay the entire cost of the bench, the base, and the installation. With the council's approval, the travelers can move forward and plan to complete the project in the upcoming weeks. Financial, none for the city. As I said, the Troy Travelers will cover it all, legal, approved as to form. I believe there's a representative of the Troy Travelers here tonight that would like to speak a little bit.
Thank you. Okay, Honorable Mayor, City Council. My name is Larry Hatfield and I'm president of the Prairie Travelers. First of all, I'd like to thank the City of Goddard for having such a wonderful relationship with Prairie Travelers and being able to work through everything and have our memorials and everything else that we like to have for this community. Also like to thank you for your generous gift to help us get the Memorial Brick Park going. Now I'd like to add a little emotion to this, if I may, just so you folks can know why we're trying to do this. The statue of Cecile, she was a founding member of Prairie Travelers and was instrumental in getting us off the ground and really getting us going where we were. Bill Vanderwall, who this memorial will be for, was another founding member that recently passed. He actually got the trail started. He did basically the first mile of our trail out at Garden Plain all by himself. So we feel this is a fitting memorial to our founding members. There are several other founding members, but they're currently alive, which is great. So we may be asking for more in the future as we're all getting older and all of that. But we feel that this is a fitting memorial for the city of Goddard and also for one of our founding members, Bill. So thank you.
Thank you. And bricks are still for sale, right?
Bricks are still for sale, yes.
Yes, I know. Didn't belong to the site.
Okay.
And just another little comment.
Thank you.
Bill was the one that mowed the yard or the downtown Goddard for 3-4 years. He would rent a mower to mow the yard while we still owned it, I mean, before you guys took it over.
What's his last name?
Vanderwall. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So look for a motion approving the Prairie Travelers' request to construct a memorial booth at Linear Park. Motion. Motion by Michael, second by Larry. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item H3, library funding ordinance.
Honorable Mayor and Council, I think we're here for the main event. one early on the card, though. As you may be aware, the current library board has a the current library mill is 3 mills. The library board has requested an additional 2 for a total of 5. I think there's been a lot of miscommunication back and forth between the two entities as far as what's required by statute, what's required by, by the law. And that the imposition of a mill cap has been something that since I arrived in 2008 just was never a consideration. And so we've known all along that it's been league practice. I mean, I've been doing this job 25 years. This is my 3rd community with my 3rd library. And, it's one of the things that they do teach you in city manager school. And so we prefer to think that you get more with honey than with vinegar. And so not imposing a mill cap, particularly when I arrived, the mill in 2008, the mill levy was 2. And sometime between 2009 operating budget or the 2010 operating budget, we presented a tiered increase. And Larry, you may remember better than me. presented a budget increase of 2 mills, and this was back when Bob Means was on the governing body, sitting right where Sarah's at. Presented a 2 mill increase, a 4 mill increase, and a 6 mill increase. And a lot of discussion back and forth, and I think the consensus was to go increase it 1 mill to 3, and know that our directive as staff was to fulfill the governing body's desire and objective to grow the community and grow our entire operating budgets, both city and library, through commercial and residential growth, which is what we tried to do from day one, which is why any of the budgets that I'm charged by the code to present has been a flat mill levy going forward. I'm also a resident, a neighbor, a taxpayer. I've been in Goddard now longer than any other city that I've been in, other than my hometown that I was raised in. So I think of Goddard as home. And we've been supporters of the library and their growth and development as we proceeded. But although the board did not technically make a formal request because there was no budget presented, I think we all understand the clear intention of their request is for 2 additional mills. I included in your staff report a league article from 2014 that says that most cities don't do this, but occasionally there are library boards and libraries that push the issue. And so as such, the recommendation would be to have some sort of simple ordinance. That simple ordinance can be amended at any point in time, or essentially a second ordinance or a new ordinance adopted down the road. So whether the city council chooses to maintain the funding allocation of 3 mills or grant the library board's request to increase funding, it's staff's recommendation that you at least adopt an ordinance at whatever funding level you would like to see. In much the same way that you direct staff, hey, keep everything as stable and as constant as you can, try not to raise taxes, that's what we want to see. So this essentially does the same thing. So if you should choose to adopt one of the 2 ordinances or none, then there is no small publication fee. But regardless of a 3 mill or a 5 mill, there would be a small publication fee in the Times Sentinel, our paper of record. As you know, 2 mills is about $50. For businesses, it's, I think, an average anywhere between, $700 to $1,000 for the average business. Now, the larger businesses, that would be significantly more. But, there are benefits that are provided, and unfortunately, this seems to have kind of grown legs, if you will. And I think, at least from staff perspective, we recommend that you adopt an ordinance capping the funding at whatever level you would like it to be at, and that we'll happily present that in our final budget. As I did share, we have an increase of about $9,000 just from the growth that we've experienced. So
You're referring to like the 7.3%?
the assessed valuation growth in new. And we look for that to be much stronger, and as has been shared in the emails, I think there was, at least in my reading of the emails, with the highlighted and bolded letters and increased font size in the very first one, I think there was a perception, or it could be construed, that you have to do this, and well, yes, you do if you don't have an ordinance. So in theory, they could come back and say, we want 12 mills, or we want 2 mills, or we want, and then you would be obligated, as we say, by law to conform with that.
Is that just this year or previous years as well?
That's every year. And like I said,
So why didn't you put this cap before then if it's that important?
because, well, it goes back to the honey over vinegar. We've known, literally, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for 25 years. We've known that an ordinance could be adopted. I've only, out of my 3 cities, I've had an ordinance in one of them.
Yeah. What about the message it sends to the library board? You asked for more money, which you could have always asked, and now we're going to punish you by capping you, because that's the message I see that looks like, as a punishment.
So are you saying, sir, that you would vote in favor of a 2 mil increase and a 6.24% property tax increase? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I would say, yes.
Okay. Because I was having trouble reading.
Right, I mean, I think that's what we're talking about.
I don't think it's a punishment.
Right.
It simply says that you're safeguarding the taxpayer dollars.
Could we change it at any time?
At any time, it's a simple ordinance.
But you could also use it against other councils saying this is what they want. Because, and if this is what you guys want, I think it looks like a punishment. If we haven't ever done it, why are we putting something new? I think they just want the 2 mil increase to give it to them. Well, if they need 10 mils next year, maybe we'll consider that. That wouldn't be the case, but.
Right.
And I don't think the intent is to punish. I think the intention is to clarify when, at least although I was not here last council meeting due to illness, what I got from that, at least the staff presentation, was that you are required to do this. So because you're required to do this and because we're asking, you should do it. And so my job as city administrator is to safeguard the council and the community. And so, following the league advice and in the attached article from 2014, that's why I'm making this recommendation.
Can I ask April any questions?
Sure, yeah.
April, so the 2 mills, I know we discussed last Tuesday. What are they going to? I never got anything as far
They're
as
gonna
what
go to
you're.
staff, increase in staff, because we need more staff to staff the library and to increase our programming. So that's mainly what that's gonna go for.
I mean, I guess I don't. I mean,
Okay,
that's very general, but.
Well, but very generally, I'm paying somebody who who's got 20+ years of experience in early childhood education and has grown our story time. I'm paying her $10.25 an hour. She has a bachelor's degree and all that experience. How do I keep people like that who are qualified, very qualified, and can really help our community grow, help keep those kids learning, doing those pre-literacy skills, getting them ready for kindergarten, when, if I can't pay staff who are qualified to do that.
How much is going to staff? It's roughly what, 95,000? Roughly?
Right now, I think it's 112, and I think we're looking at, with benefits and everything, I know it was about moving it to 140, I think, just for staff.
So it sounds like you need money paying someone else and maybe additional funding to retain.
Yes, retaining who you've got.
28,000.
And then the additional programming costs for programs we want to add.
And increasing funding could potentially, and correct me, or at least clarify the state and South Central Kansas funding of the allocation, so that in the future, if there was a need, say, due to layoffs or some sort of issue that would require everyone to tighten our belts, if there is an increase in funding and that funding is decreased, how would your state funding be impacted from that? Would you lose a portion of that, or would you lose all of that because of that reduction?
So our regional funding comes from the ILL stuff that we do, which has actually grown, so that will increase next year as well. And then it's a grant made to just kind of help with other things, other costs. That actually we get, which grants should not be included in your budget, but we get about $16,000 from the regional library. State library, we only get around $1,000 a year. That portion has come down a long way since they started doing that. So it's not very much from the state as compared to obviously the original library.
Larry?
Well, you're saying that we're gonna be punishing them, but I've been on council since '99, and I can guarantee you that the city has been more than generous to the library. We have chipped in over $400,000 since '99 to help the library. We moved the library from down there on school grounds. We bought that building, gave it to the library. We set it up so the library could use it. We moved the library twice. We refurbished the library as far as the building structure itself, made it safe, made it usable. We've got almost $500,000 in that since '99.
But that building was not originally purchased to be the library. That building was originally purchased to actually be the police station. But when they found out that the basement leaked and they couldn't put the prisoners in downstairs, they decided to give it to the library.
No, that's not the case. They bought it as a city building, and then they found out that we couldn't use the top floor because of the weight of all the people. That's what it was.
So, but we still have that issue now that we're having programming that's up there that's got a ton of people.
Well, we did pay, the city did do a structural reinforcement to allow for increased load of the floor, paid for an engineering assessment and conducted that. But I think we're not really accomplishing the main purpose here, which one thing that I would like to also note is that we did at one time discuss bringing the library employees onto city. So the city would essentially pay the salaries, but it was the Regional Library Association that said that we could not do that. So, I mean, we've tried to work cooperatively and proactively to solve this problem, but we have literally been stymied at every attempt to help do so.
Can I ask another question? So, I know when I spoke to you ladies last week, I mentioned a public vote. Have you guys thought any more about maybe letting us establish a mill levy right now, and then if you guys decide to do a public vote and it gets passed for whatever you want to decide it on, whether it's an extra 2 or 2.5, and it passes, and then the next following budget we establish that as the new, since if we establish an ordinance right now, we can change it like you said. What is the, I guess, hesitancy
The
in
hesitancy
wanting
is
to
that
do
we're
that?
probably gonna have to go to a bond issue for a new building. And so that's putting us campaigning for two things in a short period of time. I need to have time to run the library too. I can't spend all of them between campaigning for stuff. So, I mean, there's things, I'm already busy all the time.
I think it's the will of the body that we get increased by 2 mils, but I mean, that's just my opinion.
Well, but you haven't had to sit in city council in the past years like I have, where you've had widows coming in crying because their water bill went up $10 a month.
Yeah, well, we trust our water.
I was here for the water bill discussion and we've not done anything with it, so, I mean, at this point, based upon the plan that Wichita State helped us develop, and we hired April, and that development plan, the steps have been completed for the most part, if not completely, and we want to continue to move forward and grow the library and provide the services that our citizens need. I think it's our responsibility to help them do that.
What's your thoughts on the cap? Because if we know we're gonna grow the library, that's gonna increase more funding, so that's why I see the cap doesn't seem like it's very.
I guess I don't understand the cap thing.
Well,
It's over my head.
if you read the article that's attached to the staff report, and it's only like half a page, magazine.
How much are you for us, would you?
No, sir, I won't. The article clearly states that in order to make certain that the mill levy isn't at the whim of essentially non-elected people, that is a safeguard to that, which is why it's a simple ordinance and not, a charter ordinance or anything of the like. So at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want to do as a body. I feel that as city administrator, I've fulfill my fiduciary obligation to you, the board, and to the citizens by saying, this is a safeguard that can be undertaken.
April, I believe that we have discussed up here that we would try to maybe work with the county commission on doing a joint library, building, community center. And so you doing a new bond issuance, that's the first time I've heard about that. So I don't know when that came into play. As of last week, we were discussing, you know,
I've
just doing.
just heard that a couple times, that that's kind of what will probably wind up happening. I mean, that's kind of the way it seems.
I've kind of talked to them about in the past, like, kind of what the school board did, pass their bond, they need to go out and sell some kind of strategic plan for a new building, and I think that's what will be coming up in the future, right? That's what we're kind of talking about.
But if we try to do it at the city, do a joint.
Well, library, I don't know, the community center, with my discussions with the county commission was basically not a community center, a senior center. So it would be ran by a whole separate board, that way just kind of less things that we have to be involved with. It's just getting the funding and getting it started, sharing some land and expenses with them. That's kind of where I was in on that. I don't know about the library on that because it would be over in another area, which I don't really serve the lower.
So
income people as
is
well.
the problem the building, or is it the
Well, the building's
funding?
a problem, but I mean, the funding is what we need fixed right now, because we need to be able to retain staff and get at more staff.
So bit by bit, you know, maybe start with the funding, vote, special vote, or put it on the ballot, and then, once you guys get the funding, then take the next step in doing a building.
How much does a special vote cost, Brian?
10 to 12,000.
I mean, we're not talking in 1 year, we're talking over a period of time, but. Well, I mean, I don't.
I think it should be left up to the people to vote on, is what I think. Right now, everybody's involved in the library board that's in this room, but the community as a whole needs to say, yes, we want it, or no, we don't want it. And until such time as that happens, I'm opposed to doing a 5 mil. I'm for leaving it at 3 mil until the people say they want this additional added on to the library. I don't know what the rest of the council feels, but I'll make a motion to that effect, that we can leave it at 3 mils and put it up to a vote to the public.
I'll second that.
Is that doable?
Well, I'm trying to understand the motion. Is the motion to adopt the ordinance for the
Adopt the
3 mil
ordinance for
and
3
then
mils.
to direct staff? So that would require, we can do 2 separate motions, I believe. One, we address the ordinance, and then second, you would direct staff to come back with a plan for a non-binding referendum on the library budget increase.
No, but before we do that, we need the library to know exactly what funding that you want, how many mills you want for them to send it to the Sedgwick County Election Office, right?
Yes, sir. And I would recommend, and that's something that I discussed with April when she first arrived, and that's that, you know, because of our constraints and our mill levy being stable, they're understaffed, we're understaffed, they're underfunded, we're underfunded. It's just, it is the way that it is, and in the absence of a property tax increase, because you could go ahead and give them 5 mills, and if people get angry, they're not gonna be angry at the library boards, they'll be angry at the governing body. So what I would recommend is that if you want to proceed with this, that I can work with April to craft a plan that outlines not only staffing, but the capital idea as well, because that's the new capital campaign's different to me, and obviously you're talking 16 mills, 5 mills, 12 mills, you know, what size building, because that'll drive what's the interest rate at the time, which is looking to be near 0 for the next 3 years, but you're probably gonna need a sizable public education campaign.
And then once it's, if it does pass, then we can change it.
Anytime,
That's no
with
problem.
an ordinance, yeah.
So it's not really a cap, like set in stone. I mean, we can change it.
It's in the gray areas too. I mean, we do a budget, and we talk to budget ordinance and resolution every year. And we've always historically said that, well, you know, that's essentially the cap, but the statutes aren't nice, neat, and tidy, and so that's why the league recommends adopting this ordinance.
You know, my motion was for 3 mil cap.
So you motion to waive the rating on a 3 mil cap?
Is that without, are we gonna?
That would be a separate,
Okay.
separate motion.
Well, I second that.
All right, got a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, so
That's just on the waive the reading, right? Yes.
do I make a motion to,
It's a roll call for the vote.
for a vote?
For the, well, it's a roll call for the 3 mil ordinance.
So we have a motion and a second to waive the reading.
And it was a 3 to 1
For
vote.
3 mil cap. So there's it.
Which is what we
Which is
already
gonna be-
have, right? But
Right.
we're already at
But we're
3, so-
capping it.
Oh, now we're,
Well, there's not a cap. You're delineating and defining the library board mill.
What's delineate the?
It means you're drawing a clear illustration on what that is.
Thank you.
So, it's a roll call.
Motion to waive the,
You made a motion to waive the reading of the ordinance. It passed 3 to 1 with Councilmember Leland objecting. So now it's a roll call vote to adopt the ordinance for a 3 mil cap.
So a motion and a second to adopt, and then we'll do a roll call.
make a motion to adopt.
Second. Roll call.
Councilmember Larkin,
Aye.
Councilmember Zimmerman,
Aye.
Councilmember Lehman,
nay.
and Councilmember Proctor.
Aye.
And it'll be ordinance 853.
Thank you. And then a motion to direct staff to come back with an outline and plan for a non-binding referendum on a mill increase.
Yeah, and you'll cooperate with pay for
Yes.
the, unless if that's something that you guys even want to do.
I don't think we have a choice. I mean, we need more funding, so we've got to
Okay.
do it.
So that's something that we'll
I make that motion.
Second?
Motion by Larry, second by Hunter. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item H4, receive and file special revenue and reserve funds budget.
Mayor Council, today we're going to look at the funds that are non-mill levy supported, essentially, and we're also going to look at our reserve funds. The reserve funds and the capital improvement funds and the Sarbaugh fund are not technically required to be budgeted per, they're not included, our budget is not included in the state forms, but I just wanted to go over what we're projecting, so we're ahead of the curve on those. We're starting with the street fund from 40. We use the street fund, it funds part of our public works operation, it funds street lighting and signals. We also have the stormwater system included in what we do for the stormwater system. Maintenance wise is included in the street fund, and we treat for mosquitoes during the summer. You'll notice later when we get into the numbers that the state fuel tax revenue that we get for funding the fund is down in the budget year, and those are based on numbers that we get from the state. And there's been rumors, speculation that those might continue to drop going forward. So here we have just the revenue for the street fund. Those top 2 lines there, the special city county gas taxes we get part from the state and part from City County. You'll see that those are the actual collections for 2019,
this is what was, these are the numbers they gave us for the 2020 budget, and this is the numbers they gave us for the 2021 budget. So you can see that both the state portion and the county portion are down. Now, fortunately, that's not going to really have an impact on operations this year, because our one of the strategies we're doing this year and next year is we're strategically trying to bring down the fund balance for the street fund, because we increased the transfers in from the general fund when we got our citywide sales tax, and we were anticipating doing some street repairs and rebuilds like that out of the street fund. You see in the capital budget, we're doing more of that out of the capital improvement fund. So we've been trying to bring this fund down, because, look at our beginning fund balances, it's over $1 million, and this fund doesn't even have a budget of $1 million year to year. So we're bringing that down, because we don't even have a starting fund balance of more than your actual budget. So we've dropped the transfer for 2020 and 21, lowered it down to our old formula, which was 3/4 of the prior year's sales tax from Sedgwick County, from the Sedgwick County share. And we'll do that this year and next year. And then in 2020, I'm projecting adding back in some of the city sales tax collections, but we'll see what fund balance looks like, and that's just a projection. I'm not sure if we need to do that. Administration, personal services, again, this is pretty much identical to what you saw for the water fund, because we pay a third of public works and a quarter of administrative salaries from street funds. These numbers reflect those. This is our contractuals. Got a slightly higher budget here. I believe we had increases for so it was software. It was pretty much what we're seeing across the entire organization. Commodities, these are the things we actually purchase. We don't have very much of a budget in the street for that, and not on the administration side. Project discretionary here was actually our street maintenance funding that we do every year for our street maintenance program. And you'll see coming up that our plans for one of the roads here on the south side of town is all that we're going to be doing this year. So that's why that estimate is so much lower than what the budget was. Street operations, kept this flat. This is just our normal contractuals for the things we do for regular street maintenance and public works operations. Commodities here, this is doing this flat. I think we increased. Parts and supplies we increased a little bit this year to reflect the previous budget amount. Street operations, traffic signage. If you remember, for several years we had a very high budget allocation for this, because we were getting all of our signs switched over to the reflective Department of Transportation requirements. Well, we're not replacing that many signs every year, as we lowered this considerably. Stormwater, this is, we maintain the same budget here. We have, there's some testing requirements that we have, as well as we do put a little bit of work into cleaning those out, so that's what we fund that, some of the culverts, et cetera. Street lighting, primarily electrical that we use to power the street lights and the signalization of town. And then mosquito control, which is mostly chemicals we purchase to spray for mosquitoes in summertime. Again, transfers here. The only changes that I'm going to be making for the budget year are, I want to increase the transfer to equipment reserve fund, increase it by $30,000. For the past couple of years, we've been funding equipment reserve primarily through the general fund, because we had budget shortfalls in the utility funds and the street fund in years past. I'd like to get back to where the full transfers to the equipment reserve fund are equally between the four main funds. So they're all going to be around $50,000 for this year's budget, with the exception of the water fund, which there's cash balance concerns there, so we're not going to increase that yet, but we will be able to do that for 2023. So, and this is just total expenditure for the entire fund under any, projected any fund balances. So that's street fund. Next we have the Special Parks and Recreation Fund. And again, this is the, our parks operations are funded through the general fund. The Special Parks and Recreation Fund is basically, we use this for capital purposes or one-time things, not regular operating costs. Said. So here we have, this is the overall fund summary. This fund is primarily funded through a transfer from the general fund, which is $50,000, to be done every year. Traditionally, I only budget, like you see for 2020, only budgeted $25,000 because we tend to want to keep this fund used for smaller capital improvements to the parks, like we installed electricity to different parts of the park a couple years ago, just smaller projects. But I'm increasing I'm going to go ahead and put the actual budget capital outlay upgrade line item to $100,000 this year, $125,000 next year, to comply with our plans in the capital budget are going forward, because we have projects planned out over the next couple of years. So that'll give us extra fund balance there to do those. Plus, I've added, I've added in $25,000 for more of those smaller projects that just kind of come up that we don't really plan out for a couple years in advance. And we've got sufficient fund balance built up to make those improvements. Okay. Now, I'd like to say that this is the actual picture that we got from the hotel people. What our hotels look like, the colors are different. I didn't get the actual one until today, but that's basically the same. And I added the so anyway, this is tourism promotion fund. This is our bed tax, essentially, that's charged by our hotels. This fund serves as no other purpose as a mechanism to collect that revenue as per statute. We have mainly just cash flowed this money to save for marketing for the Goddard Gallery in the Starbond area as that opens up and moves forward. So we've got some. At the end of this year, we should have about $88,000 set aside in this fund for those kind of things. This last year, I believe it was 2019, we did purchase the drone that we use for some of our marketing stuff out of this fund. So we have actually used some of it.
And the Starbond Hotel will not be coming to the city until the bonds pay off, which are estimated to be in 6 to 7 years, assuming that we don't do an extension. And then after that time, those funds would be remitted directly to the city.
Yeah, so what the money we get from this transit tax pretty much comes from the roadway end. So that's it for tourism promotion fund. These are the special revenue funds. Now we're going to move into the reserves. I'm going to go through these kind of quick because this is just money that we've set aside that we use for, we essentially save to use for big purchases or major improvements to the various utility funds or utility systems. So this is the reserve fund. Like I said, I'm trying to. In the past, we've spent, we've transferred $200,000 out of the general fund to make up for shortfalls we had in transfers from the other funds. Those funds are in a much healthier place now. So I want to go back to basically having a split from where that funding all comes from. And you see here at the bottom here, we've still got a lot of money in equipment reserve that we use for. Ideally, we would be using this for vehicles and equipment purchases for public works, but also we use this for PD before and other departments that needed equipment that we didn't have sufficient budget for being purchased. It's the water reserve fund. We transfer here from the water utility fund, $40,000 a year, and this is intended to be used to make repairs to the water system, larger cost repairs. We're got a fund balance, projecting ending fund balance this year about $340,000 and about $360,000 in the budget year. And then the sewer reserve fund, same thing. It's to we're trying to build it. We sort of historically, we've had a much healthier fund balance here than the last 10 years or so, when we had the balloon payments and the sewer system went up for the plant. We've had for a couple of years, we're not able to transfer anything in here. But we are able to transfer now the sewer funds in a much healthier place. So I'm going to propose increasing that transfer. We talked about my big sewer budget up to $180,000 for next year, and then $200,000 going forward after that.
And Matt, have we still been budgeting for valves on the water lines? We used to budget so much a year to replace valves on the main lines that weren't shutting off. Are we still budgeting that?
It's in the, we budget for, basically upgrades to the system, and it's regular replacement. So that usually is done in the sewer fund.
And we have a
Or the water fund, excuse me.
we have a systematic valve exercise and replacement program. So
Yeah.
we know, we exercise literally every valve that we have a map for, or we GPS that once it's been identified, because we have valves that aren't on our maps.
Correct, and I will be in the near future, I talked with Matt about this, and I will talk with Brian more, I will be bringing an item to council for a valve replacement, next meeting or two.
And go back to water reserve fund later, because you brought that up. There's $20,000 here. I'm not exactly, that's exactly how much that I'm proposing for next year. But we're expecting to spend money here for the meter replacements, in addition to our other things. That's why we kind of put it in more. I actually put a number there instead of just leaving it blank like I usually do. Because again, these funds are not required to be budgeted because they don't count against our budget for it. Capital improvement fund, I'm just going to go over this quick because we did capital improvements a couple weeks ago. Essentially here, I'm just showing, we're still transferring in $600,000 from the general fund. Been able to increase the transfer from the sewer fund to $50,000. Ideally, we have, the sewer and water fund both transferring into here to build that fund balance. And the numbers that I have, I'm showing you here going forward. These are just the numbers that we established with the capital budget a couple months ago. So just plug it in there for budget form purposes. And this is the STAR bond fund. This is where we received the bonds and the tent notes that we used for our portion of the STAR bond project. And this is just showing, we collect some interest here. That's going to be, last year we collected $22,000, but interest rates have died, so we're not going to be collecting that much this year or going forward. And then, essentially it's just our $3 million is still in there for our working project. That's where we will pay those expenditures as they come out of this fund. It's required for STAR fund funds to have their own separate accounting. So that's why we had to create this fund a couple years ago. That's all I've got unless you have questions.
Any questions for Matt?
And then on July 6th, we'll have general fund, bond interest fund, and the library fund for our final stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Administrator's report.
I'm Mayor and Council. Just an update, the STAR bond project on the public side. We haven't had any additional draws since March 31st. We've had 10 to date, 11. Should be, I'm assuming, around the corner as we have to advance order additional parts for plumbing and whatnot for the interior portion. What you see here is the swimming or natatorium side, and the roof is almost complete. So this side over here on where the tilt wall is still up, that will be the aquatic center that's connected to the hotel for the water park. And so you've got, this is facing north, kind of right this way. Northwest is kind of this way, and then obviously there's southeast and southwest with the ball fields, and a crowd already gathered at about 10 this morning. So this side right here, it's important to note, is entirely private funds. This side here, where the health club will be, is entirely private funds, and this side here, which is where the hotel will be entirely private funds. So the city's participation is nearing a conclusion as we go from here, and then obviously because of the private sector one-to-one match, we'll still have kind of a minimal oversight capacity with that. And then here is drone footage looking back to the south with Nowak and Linear Trail and the industrial park off on the horizon. Arbor Creek, not much more to report on that, other than that we're in the process of finalizing the lift station. The roads are in, backfill's been completed, so you should be seeing some paving and dirt work invoices coming in within the next AP. And then here is the model home display with 23rd Street right here.
Sidewalk will be next, Brian. Sidewalk.
Thank you. Sidewalk. And then the sidewalk, again, will literally carry throughout, including a portion through the trees in the creek there. Clover Leaf paving is currently underway, and just want to note that we're essentially finished there with the exception of the paving draws, which is still underway. Elk Ridge is essentially done, and just want to note that we should be finalizing that. So unless there's new housing going up, you probably won't be seeing this one much more going forward. Medical Lodge is complete. Still need to put in some yards there, but it's done. And this is looking back to the east with the primary facility in the bottom of the image here. The Arc Cut, that is a intersection design project that will come off of Kellogg US 54-400 and into the Starbond site. That will also include a pedestrian crossing to allow for an island, a pedestrian island, and we're planning on scheduling a meeting this week. An email came in this afternoon from Trans-Systems for the field checks. So there's like 137 pages worth of stuff that I know Harlan's looked at. I looked at it, but I'm not an engineer, so it was fancy drawings. But we'll have a meeting with them to review that, and we'll have something to report by the next council meeting or the next administrator's report on the off week if there's not much there. Some updates on the road intersection, the frontage road realignment, and the 183rd intersection. As you know, last meeting you authorized us to kind of feel those out, and I want to thank Harlan and his team at CED for helping get all those forms together and compiled so we could get the new request for funding for 183rd as a separate project for a future year, and going ahead to proceed with the request to solicit bids for the frontage road realignment, so we can try and get construction going on that here still this summer. Just a view of Means Park here, midday before the pool opened. It's that kind of that malaise between swimming lessons and the opening of the pool. And then the classic playground area there, which is pea gravel, and it's been which I want to commend Public Works and your team, Brooke, for going through and sprucing that up real nice, so thank you. There's no weeds there, so that's good. The COVID grant application, I want to thank Micah for his work on that. We applied for $300,000. We haven't been denied, but they're waiting for authorization to release $7 million, and at that time, we're hopeful that we'll be able to report back a favorable response in some manner. The road maintenance program, as you received some comments today, we discussed Second Street, and I included in last week's administrator's report, and I included it again in the narrative this go around, that part of the problem is it's not as simple as simply blading the road, because the road is actually beneath the crown. So essentially it's a basin. And anything more that we do, all we do is drive that, essentially deepen the ditch. So Public Works has put some stuff together, and we're hopeful that we'll have a pretty insightful solution that we can use to make a more permanent fix for the roadbed that ideally could eventually be pavement capped down the road.
In the meantime, would it be advisable to close just that one block from Main Street to Cedar? Because that's where the biggest potholes I've seen are at. I mean, they're unbearable. And I don't think, anybody coming in our city should be driving on it, but I don't know what you guys recommend.
And we can put our heads together, because ideally, I would prefer not to close the street, but we can. But where I'm thinking of is maybe like for the stormwater plan, how when you're going on or off, they've got those kind of triangles. And if we were to put rock down with triangles at each intersection, folks couldn't go barreling through, but it would certainly help keep that rock in from being spread, because that's the problem. Brooks guys go out and they fill the potholes, and we have it on a routine, but the problem is that A, the speed of the cars, and B, the base is shot. So all that happens is the rocks get pushed out of the holes and then pushed out into the road. So it's a continual process. And so I think maybe by looking at maybe employing some of the stormwater, and I'm thinking out loud here, so I'll talk with Harlan Brook later, and maybe we can put something together for that. But otherwise, yes, sir, we can look at shutting that down if we need to.
I drove on it, it's pretty bad. I mean, like I said, you got people coming in our community seeing it, it's kind of giving us a bad impression. It's like we're not recognizing it, I guess. If we put a block up, we're recognizing it and letting it in the process.
And one of the first things back in 2008, as Larry was on the governing body that hired me then, I went door to door trying to get signatures to pave the roads in that area, and we were not able to successfully get that. And I know Mr. Farha, who lives at 2nd and 199th, also carried some of the water on trying to get that across the goal line. The properties I want to say are maybe 30 to 40, and I'm going off of recollection, so the numbers could be wrong, but less than a majority, less than 50% of them that I knocked on the door were actually property owners. They were renters, so their signature would have been valid if we had accepted it. And it requires 51%. I mean, the city could impose that upon them, but we've never taken that tack. North Park update. This is essentially a recap of what we talked about at my last administrator's report on the 8th, which is that we have tasks identified for property platting, which should be done in July, August, and Harlan is helping Micah and I with that. It's primarily Harlan and Micah doing that work, defining the short-term capital budget and the long-term capital plan, and then within that, breaking that out so that we get the demolition and removal of the buildings, and then start actually looking for what type of improvements would go there, and then actually building the plan, because it's essential that, as chopped up as that is, that we get that property platted so we know precisely what we're dealing with. And as the park board and the city council goes forward to look for what's the vision for that park space, that green space, how are we going to use it, that we understand exactly where the boundaries are so that we can get that get a solid footing and foundation for what we're working with, essentially the size and shape of the canvas. The Main Street lot, I know that was mentioned last time I had spoke previously. with one of the boys across the street, and then our primary contact was Mr. Strutz, and he's retired and his mailbox is still full. And then I know the mayor spoke with James, and I spoke with James, and we're just waiting for an offer. And once they get an offer, we'll certainly look at bringing it to you. And then the 6th is the general fund. It's set public hearing ideally with a target date for adoption on July 15th. And that concludes my report if there are no questions.
When did we hear about the hotel not getting built until 6 years from now?
I haven't heard that.
Oh, I
No,
thought
we
that's.
won't get the tax dollars.
Oh, okay, sorry. I
No,
misunderstood.
and that's it's fully assessed.
I think I heard that too, though.
Okay,
I misunderstood along the
okay, because I was getting a little nervous there.
No, let's assume construction begins. It's essentially, if it's completed before March 31st of a given fiscal year, then it would go on the current year's rolls, otherwise it's pushed out. So
Okay.
you're looking at a 3-year lag at a minimum.
Okay.
So I was saying 6 years before that initial district was constructed, I'm sorry.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
No,
that heard
I'm
that.
glad you clarified that. I
Okay.
apologize.
I just want to let the folks from the library know that I'm not anti-library. The reason why I voted on what I did today is because exactly what I said last time. I'm concerned about our economy, and I'm concerned about the people in our community that can't pay their utility bills. But that is why I encourage the public vote, because if the people want that, then that's what they'll vote on. So thank you guys for coming today, though. I appreciate it. That's all I have.
Was that all you had? That's your everybody comments, I guess? Any more?
That's it. That's all I have.
That's all right. It worked out. Larry?
Yeah, I thank the library board for all the work they do. Like I say, until you've seen people up here crying because they can't pay their bills, they come to us because of their high bills, and they think we're the culprits that did it, even though we're trying to divvy out the money wherever it needs to be. And it's not a good place to be when you know that people are struggling with one income and they can't pay the bills, and they want to know where they're going to get the money to keep living in Goddard. I'd like to also thank the Prairie Travelers for what they did. I mean, it's a nice looking park, and I've been involved with the Prairie Travelers for over 20 years, and we helped get this park going. And I know that a lot of work has gone into that park through their efforts, and it's good to see that they're receiving a little recognition in the park as far as having getting it going. And if it wouldn't have been for the Prairie Travelers, you wouldn't have a park down there. It would have all gone back to the landowners. That's all. The railroad property would have went to the landowners.
Sure.
Don't really have much. I think I said what I needed to say about the library. I'm frustrated that we didn't see fit to help continue growing it by providing it additional funding and looking at other ways to help our citizens with, if we voted a while back to lower water bills or base water bills more on usage, and we've done nothing with that. I think it's been over a year. So we could have solved that problem, which would have in turn helped with the library. So I'm frustrated with that whole process, I guess, is where I'm at.
Michael. Thank you, library, for everything that you do, and especially the board. I know, our family is, as well as many families, greatly benefit from it. I echo Hunter's take on it, that, if we're going to increase the taxes the citizens are paying, I think that kind of belongs on the ballot.
call down. Do you want a motion for executive session, 30 minutes?
Motion?
Do you wanna read this?
Yeah, read the
I
motion,
assume it's for
so.
personnel matter.
Need to read the whole motion?
Yeah.
This whole thing?
Yeah, and then just tell how long or what time you're gonna return back to.
Just like it was written by a lawyer.
Motion, motion to recess into executive session in order to discuss, a performance matter involving a city employee, pursuit, to the non-elected personnel matters exception, KSA 75-4-43-19B1. The city council will reconvene the opening meeting in the city council chamber at what, 9 o'clock?
If you would like your city attorney in that session with you, you should ask, otherwise you keep him omitted.
And add our city attorney in this meeting at 9 o'clock?
9.
Okay.
Alright, motion by Hunter?
Second.
Second by Larry, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Motion carries. Thank you.
Sarah. Thank you.
You get the man and that's we can get away.
I just think I need to tell the guy on the north side, we wouldn't allow that if we were north side.
I would just ask that you come in and at least like.
So that, the only, but they can hire better, but they may decide. That's fine.
Well, I think we address this.
Sure.
And then, I mean, it's kind of just, we figure out what changes need to be made.
I will agree with
Policies, folks realize that they can't just keep doing
I
this.
think the only way we do that is we need to put up a bulletin, a board up there. I mean, this is an open ditch design. That's the way it's designed. That was the good way they developed it. And you're not, and you're paying less specialties because of that.
Yeah. No.
But the guys to the north.
And then are you, where do you?
You get a cold.
We need coming out.
You get a cold. Every home builder in Ellsbury is saying, hey, can we, my home owner is asking me, can I build a
I had to put one in, I want to go back and check tomorrow if they both picked up.
Yeah.
So far from what I could see, it's been able to pick up.
Well, he just did an extension because I mean, it's probably been done for a year. You say you put an extension. He said, we don't need to go down the weeds, but
Where is that?
It's all right, I don't live.
Oh, is that Okay.
Yeah, thank you, man, appreciate it. Yes,
There's a flashing red.
Solid.
You should just stop the streaming.
Okay.
I think they're filling it. No, all right, all right. How are you doing?
Larry, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Motion carried. Thanks. Let the record show that no binding action was taken. Look for a motion to adjourn.
So motion.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Larry. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn. Thanks, everybody.